and welcome to Weird Heat. I'm Brian Altano, this is Max Scoville, and today we're talking about money.
Money.
Yes. There's plenty of videos on YouTube and podcasts out there about money, and this will not be anywhere near any of them because we don't really have great advice.
No.
And this is not about how to save money. This is about just sort of talking about the idea, the concept of it, how it's impacted our lives personally or hurt our lives personally. Just sort of, let's just have a nice, cool, collected conversation about one of those things that you're not supposed to talk about with people because it causes friends to split up and couples to fight and relatives to argue with each other. Kind of like religion and politics.
Right.
That's which we haven't done shows on yet.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. No, there was I feel like a rule that a lot of people don't know about and that the internet kind of just throws to the side. But yeah, that was the rule of polite conversation is you don't talk money, politics, or religion.
Yep.
And now that's like small talk for people. It's like shit they just bring up.
Yeah, I think there's very casual ways around it, but a lot of people are just sort of like, "How much money do you make?" And you're like, "Well, don't do that."
It's automatically going to turn it's going to make people defensive. It's going to get all nasty. But at the same time, the idea of like not telling people how much money you make, like coworkers, for instance, can be used to sort of keep people down. Like that's actually one of those things. It's healthy for coworkers to know what they make, because then if one person feels like they're underpaid or overpaid or whatever,
totally.
But at the same time, it could be like turn and like stab each other in the back. But let's pull back for a second. Let's talk about like money as a concept, as like the root of all evil, as it were.
Yeah.
I don't think it is the root of all evil. I think I would say that greed is the root of all evil.
I agree.
And money is just a very convenient tool of it's a metric for greed.
Yeah, it's a metric. That's a good way of putting it. There's a lot of talk nowadays about sort of a universal basic income type of thing, and I've always thought about that, and I've thought about what separates us from ever really fully taking a concept like that and working with it. And my theory is that if you gave everybody on Earth $100 at the same time, the people who had like the crispest $100 bills would still find a way to dunk on the dudes that had the shittiest ones. Like even when everyone is equal, people will still find using the money a finite way to be like, I'm richer than you.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, 3 months later, one guy's got $2,000 and there's a lot of people who are starving.
Yeah.
And exactly. It's like, what did you do? What happened? We left you alone for 20 minutes.
I ripped off those hungry dudes over there. Money is really interesting because it absolutely determines your ability to access many of the world's treasures and treats and all sorts of things. But for other people, it's a completely meaningless concept. Like some people are so bare bones with the way they live and the way they carry themselves. They don't really feel like, the kind of people that can like move in a backpack.
Right.
They don't really give a shit about money.
My dad said something funny about money that I don't know if it's good advice, but I don't know if it's even advice. But he said, and this was when I was in college at some point, he was like, money doesn't actually matter unless you need it. And I've been trying to unpack that for like 10 years now, and I think I think I get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
And my dad, he's like he does okay. He's like he's pretty well off, and he's also like not. I don't know. He's not like a super, status or materialistic kind of guy. Like he's not hung up on that kind of shit. But he's got some common sense when it comes to, like he's a good businessman, I think.
Yeah, and I will say that this show is coming from the perspective of two people who are doing okay. I don't think either of us are balling out, but I don't think either of us are like really terrified of like a fully truly living paycheck to paycheck. We're also kind of old,
right?
We've been around and we've been working a long time, and so you make a lot of mistakes. But a weird thing I noticed is sort of like the older I've gotten smarter with money, and I think that's where a lot of sort of conservative ideology comes in. So also we live in the most expensive place in the country, right? The San Francisco Bay Area is ruthlessly expensive. The $8, $9 avocado toast thing is a running joke that companies have embraced here. It's regularly $5 for an iced coffee. It's fucking dystopian.
Right.
But that is counterbalanced by sometimes you get a higher income, which from an outsider would be like, wow, that guy's got this much money, but it means nothing because it all sort of evens out.
I'm married to a dentist. And there's the stereotype that like dentists are rich, that they make a lot of money. And then a lot of the times that is true. They tend to get by. Medical professionals sort of do well for themselves. But there's a weird kind of there's a curve there where I think it's the closer you are to like a major metropolitan area, the lower the income is.
Interesting.
And living in the most expensive place in the world, and also having racked up a ton of student debt. Like my wife is not, she's not really balling out. You know, she does well. She makes like a decent amount of money, but a lot of that goes towards paying off her student loans. And if we were to move to like bumfuck nowhere, and she was the only dentist in town, she could pretty much do whatever the fuck she wanted. And I mean, that's where that kind of hatred of dentists for like racking up costs of things kind of comes from. But I don't know. There's a ton. There's always like a lot of competition in major areas. So that's like it's a different animal. And
I mean, I think it's like it's all relative to where you are, where you stand, where you sleep, and stuff like that. The comedian Mike Birbiglia is like one of my favorite comics. He has a great bit about how when you're broke, everything is low to the ground. Like you're sleeping on the ground. Bagged cereal is down there. There's bottom shelf liquor, all that kind of stuff. And then the more money you make and the more affluent you become, the more you can start sort of looking up at the world. You know, like rich people live in high towers. They don't live, you know, in the slums. They don't live street level where people have barbs on their doors and windows and stuff like that. I find that a really interesting concept, because I think the brokest I ever was when I lived in New York City for art school. And even then, like I had my parents helping me with college bills, but I didn't want to ask them for any money. And I was just using the money I would save from my jobs worked over the summer to live week to week. And so I made $100 every week and a half basically work for me for all my meals, my dog food, and my art supplies. I had a dog at the time. I wasn't just eating dog food. And so in that realm, I spent a lot of time and a lot of money at the dollar store. And the dollar store is this like really wonderfully dystopian place, because it is everything you could ever need in life, but worse. Like it's really, so instead of like Crest toothpaste, it's like Crossed, you know, and then you're like, I want pizza, and they have you know, like these frozen little pieces that just have indistinguishable, like there's like TV dinners there.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're just trying to get by and you get the basics, it's like a good place to keep you covered.
Yeah, and I
love going to those places for shit there really is only a certain like high level of quality.
Yeah,
like electrical tape. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there's some electrician out there who'll argue with me on this, but for my intents and purposes, for my needs, dollar store electrical tape is fine.
Totally.
Those like tinfoil trays you use for Thanksgiving to like roast a turkey in.
Perfect.
Like, you're not, if you go to Williams Sonoma and you pay like $14 for an aluminum tray that's going to get filled with gross like turkey juice anyway.
Yeah, body parts.
It's not a
grease.
huge difference from like the dollar store version.
Not at all. No, I'm totally with you on that. And it was always interesting going there, because you would see people like me who were like on a college budget, and then you would see people who were way younger who were just like had a couple bucks. They were kids and they could buy toys and stuff like that. But you would also see people who were, you know, 2 or 3 times my age who were really struggling to get by. And it really opened my eyes up about how this is a sort of a reliable ecosystem for people of all walks of life, because everything in the entire store is one price. And it's really bizarre. It feels like the beginning of like a I don't know, like a Ray Bradbury story.
Do they still do that even? I thought at this point everything was sort of like dollar plus.
Now it's all over the place.
Where it's like, this is $4, and it's still cheap. It's just not.
Well, it was also, and you saw the same thing scale with food, and where people were hungry, you could either get stuff from the dollar store, which usually meant like chips or soda or snacks. Like I said, they had TV dinners. Hungry Man's it was Swanson. Mm-hmm. Swanson's the brand that, like, if you've ever been broke, you know that brand, because they have meatloaf that has like the corn seeping into it. There's a brownie in there too that also gets meatloaf and corn in it. It all looks horrible. But at the same time, McDonald's launched the dollar menu, and so you had this dollar-based economy, and anybody could get $1. You could save it, you could scrimp it, you could find it at the couch, you could beg for it. And so for a long time, when I lived in New York City, like I went to the dollar pizza place, I went to McDonald's for the dollar menu items, and I went to the dollar store for my housewares, dog food, dog toys. There was this like rubber steak that my dog, we would get like once a month, and he would just tear apart, and we would just get a brand new one. And so like everything was $1. It was like this weird economy, and that doesn't really exist for me anymore. And I realized that when I'm made it, and I don't mean made it. I mean like when I looked back or looked up one day and I was like, I'm doing okay. I don't have to do this anymore. I said to myself, I'm never going to eat dinner from the dollar store ever again. That's not even like a big like fuck you poor people. That's just a personal victory of me being like, I've graduated past dinner at the dollar store.
Yeah, I have that with like Top Ramen.
Yeah,
which is a funny thing because you think like you talk to I don't know, white people about Top Ramen, and generally that's like the poorest thing you can eat because it's like $6 for a 25 pack or whatever. Like you can get a crate of that for stupid cheap because it's effectively like styrofoam with MSG on it. You go over to Asia, and that's like there are different tiers. You go to like any good Asian market, and there are like the high end instant ramen, and the idea is not just this is your one thing. It's like no, you're going to throw stuff in there. Like you're going to get like pieces of meat, you're going to put it in there, you're going to mix it up, you're going to customize it, and that's something that I feel like American college kids never quite picked up on.
We did the egg and we did like the slice of cheese and some hot sauce, but really when you talk to American college kids about ramen, like there were 20 of them for $1 and nobody really added anything to them.
Yeah, no, you do like I don't know, and it's
you
funny
didn't have anything
because my wife grew up with that stuff and she still loves it. She still like loves like instant noodles and things, but to me and that for her that's comfort food. That's familiar home style stuff. Whereas I'm like. Now that reminds me of when I was really broke in college, and I don't want that. Like I have that association of a much shittier time there. I think the brokest I ever was, like I have a really kind of weird kind of survivor's guilt relationship with money because I grew up like pretty poor. It was me and my mom, and at one point. We were never like she always took care of us. Like she always found work, and she always like we always got by. But it was always kind of like, oh, money's too tight for that. Like we can't afford this thing or that thing, or she had to budget left and right. And then when I was in, I guess it was after high school, and she was like, hey, and I think at that point we were getting like child support from my father, who I later kind of got to know better, and it was child support wasn't really a thing, but it was. She's like, hey, I need you to get a job to help out to help kind of pay rent. Which I mean, a lot of kids, their parents when they finish high school, they're like, hey, you got to start paying rent, and that's kind of to like nudge them out the door to be like, you could pay me rent, or you could go, buddy up with your friend and pay someone else rent. In my case, it was more like, I have to help keep a roof over both of our heads,
right?
Which kind of fucked me up, but like, I was working at a gas station, and I was about to start. I think I had started community college, so I was like commuting to school, and the only job I could find that worked with my schedule was graveyard shift at a gas station, which was on the weekends. So I was working, I think it was 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that, and then I went to school Monday through Thursday. So I was effectively like. Moonlighting and daylighting, I guess. And I'd have to basically readjust my sleep schedule. It didn't last long. But while I was doing that, my mom was unemployed too. And I was the sole breadwinner at age 19 in our house that we were renting. And I was just sort of like, I don't have the opportunity to like complain about this, partially because I'm too tired, but also because like, this is, I mean, I if I don't do this, everything will collapse around me.
You're like, this is how it's done.
I remember having like knots in my neck from stress. Like I was so kind of like, it wasn't even like a feeling, like I wasn't letting myself, freak out about it. Cause like, that's the thing. If this was in school, if this was like a homework assignment, I would have been like, I can't do it. I don't want to, but I didn't have that luxury. I was like, if I don't just bite the bullet and fucking do this thing, we're going to be on the street. Like we're not going to, I don't know what will happen. And that's terrifying to me. So I just kind of had these nodules in the back of my neck that I could feel. And I was like, that's weird. What is that? Why do I have lumps?
Well, because it's a lot like it's a lot like getting knocked back to like 8th place in Mario Kart. Like you might be able to crawl back to like 6th, but on lap 3, you're not getting 1 or 2 ever again.
No, exactly.
So you have to fight to be, even if you're in that middle area, you're fighting. And I think about Mario Kart a lot as a sort of relationship to the economy, because 1st and 2nd place really only have to deal with each other. And then occasionally like a crazy person in last place tries to kill the guy in 1st place, which is kind of like getting mugged. It's okay. It happens every now and then. It's shrapnel. And then there's that middle area where it's a fucking war. It's just not like places 3 through 7 in Mario Kart are just constant chaos, people fighting. That's the middle class basically in this country or in the world. And then you look at the last place area, and like there's not a whole lot that they can work with. They're dealing with the mess from the fight up above them. Everybody up there, like fucking banana peels everywhere.
Yeah,
you know, they're picking up scraps of whatever they can find. Yeah, it's really fucking weird. And so
I mean, we were like, I wasn't starving. Like this could have been a lot worse. Like, this could have been really, really, really bad. But it was definitely like it was a rough time. And
it
was
opens
like,
your eyes as a kid too.
Yeah, it was like feeling like you were kind of on the cusp of like I remember coming home from work at like 7 a.m. and my mom was just like waking up, and I think like I remember her just I think she was like horribly depressed and she was like crying, and I was like, well, I just got to power through this. Just got to keep doing this. And I eventually I think I just got really, really sick, and I was like panicking because I'm like, if I don't make it to work, like this isn't going to work out. And my mom was like, you're not going to like, we'll figure something out. Like we'll make it. It's going to be okay. Like I have a job interview. It's going to come through. And I think I wound up just like calling in and just being like, I can't do this anymore. I quit. And my fucking boss, Steve, was like really disappointed. I'm like, the fuck did you expect? You hired a fucking 19-year-old to work graveyard shift
at a gas station.
What did you think was going to happen? What the
here?
Fuck? But
I'm going to make a career out of this.
Yeah, weird thing about that is that when you're working that hard, you don't really have a chance to spend money. And I think I had like direct deposit set up, and like there was like one day when I was like, I'd had enough coffee to like hang out with friends, and I was like, oh, let's go to the mall, and we went to the mall, and I like checked my bank account. I was like, oh, what I can buy a T-shirt. This is cool. This is great. You know, I probably should have just given my mom all that money, but
it really limits everything you can do, because it's like you'll go hang out with friends who all go to a bar, and you drink before you get there to save money, and then you get there, and then there's. It's a very old movie at this point. There's a fantastic scene in the movie Half Baked where Dave Chappelle's character goes on a date with this woman named Mary Jane, and he's got like $4 to his name, and you see a counter in the corner, and she's constantly trying to get him to spend more money because she has no idea his financial situation, and he's fronting like he's balling out, and so every single thing that she goes to do, he makes like these weird little sort of conceits on and goes like, well, how about we do this instead or this instead? At one point, he takes money out of the cup of a homeless guy.
Yeah.
It's a comedy.
No, but it's like, well, let's get a cab. Why don't we walk? It's nice out.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Little things like that. And so like I noticed that when I was younger, because like my friends would invite me to go out for drinks and they'd have more money than me, and I'd kind of hang back. And every now and then they'd be like, we're doing shots. And I'd be like, oh yeah, hey, I'm part of this. And they'd start counting and be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots, and I'd be like, oh, thank God, I got a little bit of alcohol to get me through the next hour and dodge this bullet. I kind of like you. One of the first times I ever saw my dad cry was because of money. He was expecting. We had moved from Jersey City, New Jersey, which was like not a great area, into a real house in the suburbs in northern New Jersey, and it was really nice and it was big, and we had this huge backyard, and we were so happy as kids. And then a lot of the income that he was expecting to get fell through. And so when people buy a home, they hope for the best because they look at, this is what I'm going to have to pay for, and things were considerably cheaper back then too. And he didn't get what he thought he was going to get, and I walked into the living room and it was pitch black in there, and he was just laying on his back and he was sobbing, and I'd never seen that before. And really I didn't see it again for a very long time after that.
That fucks you up.
And it really fucked me up.
Fucks you up as a kid.
And it put a lot of things in perspective to me, because there was a video store in my town called Video USA, and we went in there and they had this huge candy bowl in there. And we went, and their thing there was, it was 2 movies for 2 days for $2, which is fucking amazing. And they had like all the great horror movies, and like it was my first exposure to a lot of like crazy box arts, like Ghoulies and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And we would rent Transformers and Return of the Jedi, usually those 2 ad nauseum. And we came home and we'd watch them and we'd bring them back in 2 days. And so we went in there one time, and like our routine was like we'd get the movies for $2, and then we'd stop off at like a grocery store or a gas station or like somewhere like that and get some candy or get some snacks to watch the movie. And we went in there once, and I reached into the candy jar to take a piece of candy, and my brother did too. And my dad goes, why don't you take some more? And I was like, no, I'm okay. We'll get more at the store later. And he's like, I don't think we're gonna go to the store. So if you want to take some candy, you should. And we were like, oh. why? And he was like, oh, it's just because, I don't know. I don't think we should go to the store. So we're going to kind of cut that out for a little while. So just take some candy here. And so my brother and I came home, and slowly, without realizing it, we had taken one of my dad's, he had this like metal, it was like this beige metal tin box that you kept like index cards, almost like a big old Rolodex. And we had taken the thing out of the middle of it, and we started putting candy in it from this video store. And so every time we went to the video store, we would take candy and put it in there. And like a lot of it was like cheap Vietnamese candy, and it would melt in and get stuck on the walls of this inside of this box. So we had this like gummy, gluey box full of cheap, shitty candy. And when we went to watch movies or we wanted snacks for like 6 months, we would go to the box and we'd take some, and then we would go to the store, and we would take turns kind of distracting the dude behind the counter and take all the stuff. And my mom came in one day, and she was like reorganizing we had like a little playroom where we had our stuff, our toys. And she found this box, and she opened it up, and she was like, what is this? Like, where are children getting candy that I don't like? Like, it's weird for children just to amass secret food without you getting it at the store. And they're like, is dad buying this for you? And we were like, no. And she goes, where are you getting it? And we were like, oh, well, we didn't want to spend any of your money because we heard dad crying about money. So we were taking candy from the video store. And my mom just burst into tears. And she was like, dude, no, we can buy you candy. We can afford you candy. And we're like, we just didn't want to, we didn't want to hurt anybody. We didn't want to impose or anything like that. And like, yes, in the pantheon of people listening to the show, watching the show, who've grown up poor or, pulled themselves out of debt.
That's candy. That's a luxury. That's not a thing anyone needs.
I mean, it's just a very stupid, simple story, but it illustrated how that can affect children, how it can affect adults. And again, like that is nothing compared to what many poor people in the world have gone through. And my family was never really that. It was a tough time that defined us for a bit.
I mean, obviously, in the kind of the grand scheme of things, we're definitely like we I think we grew up okay. I think there's probably lower middle class at worst, not like,
of course.
And this is in America, like it gets worse other parts of the world. I've seen I went to Vietnam, and there's like fucking terrifying poverty there. And it's just, somebody's always got it worse and somebody's always got it better, no matter what. Grass is always greener. But I don't know. I think money itself is as a thing, it's very easy to sort of point at that and be like, yeah, it's because of this. It's because I don't have enough of this. I think they did some study, and I could be wrong about this, but there is a point where in tests, after a certain income, it doesn't matter. Like I think I want to say it's like $150,000 a year or something, and it's a substantial amount. It's definitely like, yeah, you're rich, but you're not like 1% rich.
No,
it's not like after a certain point, there's only so much that like your lifestyle will actually influence your happiness, and the rest is kind of on you. Like you kind of have to
It's like your dollar store turkey tray thing. It's like if you're like, I don't know, I buy jeans at Levi's, right? You do too. Like they make great jeans. They're comfortable. Sometimes you go in there and there's a sale and you can get like 4 pairs for like $160 and you feel good. It's awesome. But like if I was super fucking rich, I don't think I would buy $10,000 jeans. You know
what was funny, and I'm sure you saw this too, but trying to figure out who was rich at art school. Because at art school, nobody wants to really floss. They're just kind of, the whole thing is to be like, oh, I want to be a starving artist. Like I want to be down to earth. And I went to SFAI in San Francisco, and half the kids there were like rich kids from LA, like rich hipsters, trust fund kids, like just their parents were movie producers and shit like that. And then some of them I was there on like a bunch of financial aid and like scholarships and stuff. And there were other kids like that too. And we're all dressed the same. We're all drinking the same shitty malt liquor. We're all like bumming cigarettes off each other. And so in terms of actually figuring out who actually needed money, you'd catch like little tidbits of like, oh, you don't have our desperation. Like you're not, like this doesn't freak you out. And
it's weird because I think for people like that, like they do find a common footing, but some of them are sort of just they're they're touring poverty, or they're touring. Yeah, they're slumming it.
Slumming it. Yeah.
That's the better way of putting it. I listen to a ton of hip hop, and the funny thing about hip hop is that so much of it is about this quest for money, this like idea that it's like you need to get more, and a lot of the stuff that happens there is the reverse of slumming it, which is pretending to be rich momentarily. So you see a lot of shit in hip hop like renting jewelry, renting cars, balling out, flossing, as they say, like basically making your shit look way bigger and way more impressive to trick other people into thinking you're rich, because once you do that, other people will start treating you like you're rich. And you actually, like, by pretending that you have a really nice car and that you have a really nice necklace, you'll get invited to, like, you know, the rap awards, the BET awards, and then when you're there, they'll give you like a gift bag that has a really nice necklace.
That's what's
like,
kind of fucked up, is that like
the rich get richer.
And I mean, we have this to a very like a minor degree here. Like we work at IGN, and companies will like send us, they're like, oh, you host a show here, have this thing, and we're like people will like fans will send us shit for free, and we're like, thanks, this is really cool. It feels weird. I don't know. Give it to. It
feels weird. Yeah.
Give it to someone who doesn't have it. You know.
Especially when it's like when it's like something you were definitely going to buy anyway. You know. So I think that's really interesting. Another really fascinating concept of money is how physically it's kind of evaporating, and we're heading into an ecosystem now.
Well, it really is just a metric when you dig into it.
Yeah. You know? Like we live in a very weird city because there's a massive class divide between the rich and the poor. Sometimes it happens within 3 square feet, where in front of like a mansion or a really nice department store, there's a homeless guy with nothing. But people in San Francisco, or people in general, are moving away from a cash-based economy. So if our money was basically, for the longest time, it was stacks of things, you know, like there's that famous scene in Breaking Bad where Bill Burr's character and that dude Huel are just like laying back in that big money pile.
Yeah.
And it's like, fucking hell, that looks awesome. But also like it's filthy, and they had to go and like spray it for silverfish and shit like that. Like it just gets gross. So we're moving away from all that. I remember like being a little kid and getting like, you know, one of those like coin counters, and then filling up the paper tubes and bringing them to the bank, or finding out Coinstar would take money from you to get your change turned into money. All of that change, all the coins, all the cash, it's all kind of disappearing for a lot of people. It feels very old school to see a guy pull out a wallet with like a fat wad of cash in the back, because it's kind of a pain in the ass. Now a lot of people, they have like a phone that has like a credit card on the front of it, so they can just get their whole life stolen in 1 second.
Right, exactly. No, there was a restaurant down the street I went to that just straight up doesn't take cash, which is like kind of alarming, really.
It's crazy.
But then I stop and think about it. I'm like, oh, this is also like in, you know, Tech Bro Central. Like who's cash only over here? Like and then at the same time, there are plenty of restaurants that are cash only, and if you want to use a card, you got to go pull out money at an ATM.
Yeah, it's actually real weird for me to get upset about that, because for the longest time I was upset going to places that were cash only in San Francisco, because it meant I had to go to a bank, and if my bank isn't on that corner, you lose money to get money, which is the stupidest fucking thing in the world, is taking out money from an ATM and having to pay money to do that. Or also the times, one of the dumbest things that ever happens in the history of human life when it comes to money is when you have less than a certain amount of money in your bank account, and they punish you by charging you money.
Oh God, dude! So
you've had that happen, right?
I had a, you know, in Monopoly when they're like bank error in your favor, and you're like, fuck yeah, free money, this is great. I had that happen to me once, and it was great, sort of. In the long run, it was not. I checked my bank account, and I was like, oh, fuck, I got paid extra. I clearly I was like 19. I didn't really think about it too hard. This was after the gas station shit. This was when I had like a much more stable job, and I was like, hey, I got a little bit of extra cash to throw around. This is awesome. And so I went on eBay and I bought a PSP that had like 8 games. And I was like, fuck yeah, PSP, all right. And I got like a sweet deal on it too. And I opened it up and it had like a whatever, the like 16 gig memory stick in there. And I was like,
oh, huge back
that's
then.
A steal. They didn't know that was in there. This is great. And then I checked I think I tried to buy like a Slurpee at 7-Eleven, and they were like, the credit card machine was like, call the cops or something. And I was like, that's odd. It's declined. And I checked my bank statement. It was like negative $600. And I was like, what the fuck happened? And apparently the bank had like deposited somebody else's money into my account, and they'd put in like $400. And I was like, oh, cool. I'll spend, $300, and then I'll pay rent, and then I'll, go about my business, and I'll try to buy a fucking Slurpee. And every additional transaction I made after it was below zero, they were like, we're going to charge you an extra $20 there.
Yep.
I had a fucking meltdown because I was like, I'm in debt. And like,
it's terrifying.
I mean, when you're fucking 19, that's a stupid amount of money. You know, that's and I was like, it was also like, it was a fucking janky ass like local credit union. And credit unions are supposed to be like better for you than banks, or they're supposed to take care of you, but they were like, nah, sorry, man.
Yeah,
you're pretty fucked.
And the thing with those dudes is like they've heard it all.
Yeah,
you know, they're like traffic cops. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They've heard it all.
So luckily, what happened was one of my friends who was not worried about, you know, he and his mother being homeless. They had like a nice, you know, his parents were a little bit more well off, and I don't get how this works. I had like the shitty job, and he like didn't actually. This feels like judgmental, but he really didn't actually need the money, and he had this fucking job as a pool boy and would make like $400 a night just like bringing drunk chicks drinks. And he get to wear like shorts to work, and I had to like wear like shitty slacks and like but no, he had like all this cash laying around because he'd just been, you know, a fucking like a poolside bar back or whatever, and they would just be like, here darling, take that. Just like after 8 margaritas or whatever. And so he's like, hey, I was thinking about buying a PSP. You want me to buy that off of you? And he just bailed me out, basically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was super. And then he just. I don't think he ever actually played it. He just was like, I'll do him a favor. I don't know, whatever. Fuck it. And he just like.
Did you ever get another PSP?
No, I got a Vita. That's another sad story to talk about. But no, it was. I mean, but it was like, it was stupid fucking. Just a stupid clerical error. And it's like the kind of thing that you're from a young age, you're like, yes, I know how to manage money. I've played Monopoly a bunch. If there's a bank error, finders keepers. And they're like,
that
fuck
shit.
No.
I remember that shit used to fucking kill me. I remember this is one of the worst times I ever looked at my bank account was I had $15 and I said, fuck yeah, I have enough money to go out tonight and buy like a $11 handle of vodka and like $4 on like chips or whatever the fuck. Yep. I was like, I can do it. I'll have like $1 left in the bank, and then just fucking wish and a prayer for 2 or 3 days until I get paid again, and I'll be all right. And I had some food at home. I was like, we're gonna be good. And my bank was like, you have less than $100 in your account, so we're dinging you $20.
Fuck that.
So I walked up to the cashier and I went to ring up my thing, and it goes no, and it said insufficient funds, and which is the most embarrassing thing. So I walk over to the ATM and I type in my PIN up at the card, and it said you have negative $5. Just like I was like, I had $15 because I didn't have $100. I have no dollars now. How does that fucking make any sense? Like you dunked on me for not having enough when I had very little, so you made me have less than nothing. Not even. I didn't even have. So I would have to find $5 to get back to having nothing at all. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know. I on some level I sort of miss the simplicity of, and this is a fucking, we've talked about nostalgia and how it's fucking bogus. This is bogus ass nostalgia. I definitely miss that like that victory of being like, yes, I've gotten paid. Now I will pay rent to my mother, and I have like $70 to last me 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you make it count
for fun money, and I'd be like, okay, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing tonight? And it'd be like a 40 and a burrito or something, you know, and that, you know, that would take care of business. That'd be a good time, you know.
Yep. Yeah, it's at the point now if like if I receive a large windfall of money, like, you know, like there's a bank error in my favor, or like I do all my expense reports for work at one time, and then I get like I get a big paycheck one time. I don't even go like, oh, this is, you know, I'm gonna ball out with it. I just take it, I put it away somewhere, and it's not even like a big victory. You know, like it's the kind of thing now. It was like you were saying before. Like if you gave me like a ton of money, I don't even think it would really, because it wouldn't be enough to buy a house, and it wouldn't be enough to really move out of my apartment, and I don't think I'd get the $10,000 jeans.
No,
you know?
So, no, fuck no. You want?
So what are you left with?
Levi's or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think a lot of that is taught. You teach yourself about working within your comfort zone, and for that I am lucky, and I'm glad that I did learn, like, from that candy box and from that negative $5 day, like to work with what I have.
You know what fucks me up is the different assign values to things. Mm-hmm. Like you're talking about like, oh, like $40 for a pair of Levi's, like what a steal. After living in San Francisco too long, you're like, wow, a $10 cocktail? What a bargain.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's, I don't know, you go to a lot of places, it's like a happy hours, like fucking $2 drinks or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, a lot, we pay for the regular things we pay for here is like baseball stadium prices.
Yeah, no, it's fucking horse shit nonsense. But then at the same time, there's a logic of like, okay, a physical item is like I'll spend like way too much money eating out or going to bars or whatever. And like if you look at the actual like the perceived value or the actual value of a dining experience, if you get the ingredients to make the thing and you cook it yourself and you even account for time, like eating out, going to bars, it's like fucking ridiculously nonsensically expensive. Mm-hmm. My wife and I have no problem with that. We're like, yeah, fucking whatever. You only live once. Hello, And there's some study that's like you get more happiness out of experiences than you do out of physical possessions.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, we're like, $60 for jeans? Are you out of your fucking mind?
I do that all the time with video games where I'll look at like the PlayStation Store or like the Nintendo eShop and I'll be like, $59.99 for a game that will last me maybe 6 hours. Are you fucking kidding me? And then I go to a restaurant and they're like, hey, do you want a wedge salad? And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, it's like a regular salad, but we don't do anything to it. And I'm like, okay, how much does that cost? And they're like, $14. And I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll do 2 of those for the table. How many of us are there? Yeah, we'll get 4 of those. And I pull back and I'm like, motherfucker, that's Wolfenstein too.
Yeah.
God damn it.
No, I mean, the logic there is, and I don't know, it's, again, money's different for everybody, how you approach it. And also for us in the back of our like fucking warped brains, like, a video game, that's a business expense. That's like how most people, they go to Staples and they're like, yes, pens, this is, that's like a serious thing, and, but you can't, that's not Wolfenstein 2,
No.
But no, I mean, we do have that where it's like, you look at like, I don't know, like people do that thing with games where they're like, this game is $60 and it's only 11 hours of content. Are you fucking kidding me? And it's like, well, you think that's bad? Try going to the movies with 2 people.
Yeah.
You see the movie and it's like $14 each. Mm-hmm. And the movie's an hour and a half long and the popcorn is $8.45 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
There's a dude in the lobby who is getting paid nothing to make grains hot, and they're getting larger. And then he's putting fake butter on them and charging you $14.
Fucking apropos of nothing, like originally movie theaters fucking were not into popcorn. There were just dudes who'd come up with popcorn carts outside movie theaters and be like, get your popcorn here. Come on, get your popcorn. And then people would just bring popcorn in the movies and the movie theater owners would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Getting popcorn everywhere, you assholes, you fucking animals.
I mean, the markup on that shit is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
It's same thing with soda, and but we don't think about it.
Yeah.
But then with certain things, like with video games, with other things, we look at them and we're like, oh, that's not worth it. That's, or like the dollar store thing is like, people would rather buy like really cheap, shitty forks 15 times a year than like a really good one once every year or 2 years.
I want to say that
I hope you don't buy a new fork every year.
Yeah, I only use a fork once and I throw it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they know me now at the old Bed Bath and Beyond.
That's fucking stupid of you.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I'd love to say that there's like old aphorisms like, oh yeah, like you get what you pay for it, but it's like, no. A penny saved is a penny earned. No, it's not.
Well, there's also shit like layaway where people are like, it's like you ask a dude who's broke, like, he's like, I want to sit down in my apartment. You're like, okay, cool. A couch is for $300. And he's like, I've literally never had that much money at once. And they're like, okay, fine. We have a deal for you. A couch is $10 a month for the next 7 years. And you're like, well, I can afford that because I always have $10 every month. But that's a lot more than $300. And they're like, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Stand?
Yeah, I mean, that's like credit card stuff too. Mm-hmm. The thing that fucked me up about credit cards, and I think you had this too, where you think, like we grew up like hearing about like credit card debt and how it's like it's terrified
of it.
Yeah, and you're like, you're like, I'm not falling for that one. I'm not going to use credit cards at all. And then you apply for like a rental application. They're like, all right, what's your credit score? And you're like, sorry, what? And they're like, did you ever have a credit card? You ever do anything with credit? Like, do you ever, can you prove that you have credit? And you're like, no.
I didn't start building credit until my early 30s because I was like, oh, credit cards are bad. I see them ruin people's lives. Mm-hmm. And I only spend money when I have money to spend. Mm-hmm. I don't spend money that isn't real and then repay that money and then pay interest on that money. But yeah, you're right. At some point you look up and they're like, you're not a real adult unless you have a credit score. And you're like, but I've been really good with money. Like, I didn't spend other people's money. I'm not in debt. I have a friend.
Yeah, but they're like, you also didn't play the game.
I have a friend whose mom, like, she's in debt to like 16 different credit card companies. And he goes like, Mom, what are you going to do? Like, when they come for you? And she goes, those cocksuckers can find me in hell. And it's like, okay, well, that's one way to sort of be like,
Just ride it till the wheels fall off.
Yeah, you know? So, I don't know. Money is complicated. Well, obviously, we'll never get to the bottom of it. It's endless. Scrooge McDuck has been trying to get to the bottom of it by spinning and spitting out those coins. But
I don't think anyone expects us particularly to solve their money problems.
No, but hopefully talking about it helped you think about some of the stuff you've been through with it. And if you're struggling with money, then I hope things get better for you and you find the right way. But if you got a little extra income sitting around, we have a Patreon. Like, you know, most beggars do. And we'd love if you could kick us $1 or more every single month, and or even just once or twice.
It's the open guitar case of the 21st century.
That's true.
Throw some coins in there.
Yeah, we love making the show. We love making music for this show and all the art and stuff like that. So, yeah, if you like the show, support us. Go to patreon.com/weirdheat. Go to weirdheat.com and buy a t-shirt. We tried to make those reasonably priced because we care about your money.
We have this 90s kid mentality that a t-shirt should be like $15 tops. They've gone up in price. They're more expensive now.
Also, the show is on Spotify, so is all the music from this show. So if you want to go find more of it there, if you're more comfortable listening to it there than you are on YouTube or iTunes or wherever else, we just want you happy and comfy and listening to us anywhere.
I mean, we'll get people sometimes on Patreon who are like, hey, I'm really sorry I can't swing it this month. That's totally cool.
Totally cool.
Like, I feel like, I don't know, you don't owe us anything. It's very nice for everyone who supports us, and we appreciate every last dollar or cent. But mostly, you know, if you like this show, you know, say something nice in the comments, tell your friends, spread it around, and yeah, that's money isn't everything. Yeah. So thanks for watching or listening, and we love you very much. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another Weird Heat.
Get that money.
Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Stacking the cake makes rainy days sunny. Want to get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get this money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Stacking the cake makes rainy days sunny.
Get the money. 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 Get the money.
There is a lesson you must learn. Play with fire, you must get burned.
Get
The
the money.
going is
Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get
Get the money.
this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Get money. Get this money. Get money. Get money. Stacking the cake makes rainy days sunny.
Get the money. 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 Get the money.
There is a lesson you must learn. Play with fire, you must get burned. The going is